Hi, Kim Raynor here from All About Spirits, Life After Cancer, and I want to welcome you to this week's episode. And, when we are diagnosed with cancer, it throws us curveballs. And I created Life After Cancer to help bridge the gap between what your medical provider can offer for you and what you actually need to be able to walk through your life after you've had the cancer diagnosis. And today is the second episode in a series called Embracing Wholeness in the Face of Cancer. And, last week I talked about the introduction to this program, and we talked a lot about fear. And we're going to pick up this week where we left off at the end of last week and talk again a little bit about fear and what happens when we have a fear response. So the moment that we're diagnosed with cancer, most of us have some kind of fear that gets activated within us. And that sets up those feelings, that feeling of fear sets up a whole series of reactions in our body that we have absolutely no control over. They are part of our hormone system, and they tie back in time to when we were hunters and gatherers and our fight, flight, or freeze mechanism was engaged. So fear has a lot of different faces, and it doesn't really matter which one activates it, which one activates the fight or flight series or reaction. The fact is it gets activated. And back in the day, when we were hunters and gatherers, we could run away from what we were afraid of. But when our fear is because of something that's going on inside of us, right? The fear of our body being betrayed, the fear of our mortality, the fear of who's going to take care of the family if something happens to us. When that fear is going on inside of us, there's no way to escape that. There is no place for us to run from that place. And the whole purpose of this series, the whole purpose of this program is to help you find a way to enlist the inherent powers of our hearts and our minds and our bodies so we can do everything we can to help set our healing powers in motion, so we can start on a path of healing no matter what's going on. So when you are first diagnosed, or as soon as you possibly can after your diagnosis, if you are able to separate yourself, the illness, from the idea of creating strategies or plotting strategies that you're going to use to treat your illness, that's really helpful, right? To find a way to put some distance between the two. And the sooner you can do that, the easier the process is to be able to navigate. And, when we get the diagnosis, it probably activates some other questions for us, right? We might ask, okay, what can I do to improve my outcome? Or we might ask, why is this happening to me? Why me? What did I do to deserve this? You might be asking, okay, what do I need to do to activate my inner healing? How do I get to cooperate with my medical team to make sure that I get the best possible care that I can get and improve my chances of survival? And, the Life After Cancer, the whole series is really about helping supplement or work in tandem with what traditional medicine has to offer, because traditional medicine doesn't actually address all of your physical needs. It doesn't address your spiritual needs. It doesn't necessarily address the intellectual needs or the emotional needs. I mean, it helps you walk through the process of cancer, and it treats the cancer, but the series Embracing Wholeness in the Face of Cancer really helps to look at all of the needs. And there are some medical institutions today that offer the services, but a lot of them are private pay, and people like me didn't have access to them, which is why I put this work together. So when we're diagnosed with cancer, we are literally thrust into a crisis. And in Chinese medicine, there is the symbol for crisis is Wei Ji. And that is a combination of the symbols for danger and the symbol for opportunity. And when you think about it, having cancer can be an opportunity for you to look at your life and maybe change the way that you're doing things. And, we don't set out consciously to give ourselves cancer or to get sick or to do any of that stuff. And there are so many of us that have walked through the process that when we get to a safety place on the other side, we start to see our cancer journey as, maybe the most important experience that we've had in our life to date. And in the beginning, the idea that this might somehow be a gift is kind of unconscionable. But, looking back in the rearview mirror, I can honestly say that there are a lot of aspects of my cancer journey that have been a gift. So my hope in offering this information is to provide some understanding and some encouragement and maybe some guidance on things that you can do to walk through the process. And, you can, by invoking your body, your mind, your spirit, and the innate wisdom that's inside of all of that, you literally have a way that you can influence the course and the meaning of your illness. And that part is up to you. Nobody can do that on your behalf. So I just want to look at my notes here. So our thoughts and our emotions and the choices that we make in life can literally create the inner and outer reality that we experience. And when we're looking at healing ourselves, it can help us create a healing environment. And, one of my favorite sayings is that that farmers don't grow food, right? They create an environment where growing can take place. And then God grows food. And it's the same kind of way with healing, right? Doctors don't heal us. They create an antiseptic environment where healing can take place, and then spirit heals us. So we can cooperate with spirit in the process of treating our cancer. So, a lot of times people think, well, I'm just going to be positive. I'm going to think positive thoughts. And I can tell you that sticking a happy face on your cancer diagnosis is not going to help. We aren't able to change the course of our lives just by taping an aspirin to our forehead, right? That's not going to make the headache go away. So we need to find a way to have a genuine shift in our perspective. When we can literally shift our perspective, then there is actually a measurable change in the chemistry, the chemical code within our body. And that is what activates the transformation process within us. And activating that is what gives us the opportunity to really change the substance of our lives. So how do we look at our cancer experience? How do we interpret the ideas and the life events that we have, and how we think about these things? That literally becomes a record for our reality. It literally paves the way for where we're going to head. And if we have expectations around those ideas and those feelings, that literally influences where we're headed. And our expectations and our thoughts today are literally influenced by our experiences of the past. So if you have had an experience with someone as a cancer survivor and you've watched them walk through the process and they saw it as a struggle, that may set you up for saying, oh my gosh, my cancer is going to be a struggle. When I was diagnosed and I looked at the prognosis for my cancer and I read that, it's like, oh my gosh, I have a 30% survival rate with the kind of cancer I have. I don't want that to be my reality. So I stopped reading that stuff. I stopped paying attention to that stuff. And I really focused on what it felt like for me right then and there. And the truth was, my body, when I was first diagnosed, it didn't feel any different than it did the night before I was diagnosed. I was mostly feeling okay. So having watched other people struggle, having paid a ton of attention to the prognosis, having putting a lot of time and energy into that can actually shape our expectations. And as you know, there are as many responses to cancer as there are people who have experienced it. And you know, there were problems with my cancer. I mean, I had challenges, I had sickness, I had lots of other things that go on. Rarely do I talk about that stuff, because you can read and hear about that stuff a dime a dozen. I wanted to know about the healing part of it. I wanted to know what to do with it. And that's what we're going to talk about in this show. So new ways to handle challenges is really one of the greatest gifts that we can offer each other and we can offer ourselves. So finding information, tuning into the Chopra Center for Wellness and looking up information on how to help supplement your cancer treatments with natural processes is really good. Giving your body healthy food, all the things that your doctors talk about, that stuff is really powerful and helpful, and it's good. And it is it's important as we walk through the process. So you have a choice as you walk through this process. You can either choose to react to things, or you can choose to get creative about how you're going to deal with them. A reaction for me was to go and read what it said on the internet about stage 3 ovarian cancer diagnoses. The creative approach to that was to say, okay, are there meditations that I can listen to that can help me relax, that can help me reduce some of the stress? So there's a reaction and there's a creative force. And I get to choose which playground am I going to play in. We also have the opportunity to shut down, to separate from our spiritual selves, to disengage from the world at large, to shut people out of our lives, or we can opt to make changes in our lives. If we have a habit of eating, you know, a lot of fried food or a lot of chocolate, and our go-to is to eat our way through our emotions, we can choose to eat our way through our emotions, or we can choose to say, holy cow, that might not serve me very well. Maybe I want to figure out something else that I can do instead of eating my way through. Maybe I can find some nourishing things to help my body in the process. And then, you know, we can continue to try to do the same things that we used to do. Or we can look for new ways to try and awaken the healing response in our bodies. And as we continue to go into this program, we're going to talk more and more about that. But before we can get into the healing part, it really is helpful to understand some of what our disease is about. Understanding the relationship between our healing natures of our heart and our mind and what our medical communities can do. And then we also have the choice to do only what the path of most traveled tells us to do, or we can do the path of most traveled and supplement it with other ideas, supplement it with methods that haven't been tried, not as a substitute to those treatments, but as an enhancement to those treatments. And those kind of things happen in choice. There is so much power in the power of choice, and you get to decide what you're going to do with that. So I'm really excited to be able to continue to present this. And I hope that between now and our next show, you spend some time with your heart and you spend some time with your mind and you literally consciously invoke the healing power of nature's wisdom, the innate intelligence that happens in our body automatically without any efforts. I hope that you take some time to explore my work and other people's work on helping and healing yourself of cancer. So if you found anything in today's episode that's helpful, I hope that you like the information and share it, and that'll help make these videos available to more people. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope you make it a great week. Thanks for being here.